us. Both of you, appreciate your time and thanks for the insights today. Ravi Uppal is the JSPL chief. He's the managing director and group CEO at JSPL. The company reported numbers for the first quarter. The stock's been beaten down severely. Remember, starting April, JSPL did not have access to coal mines, it's managed though. The numbers are better. Maybe inventory that it's built up over a period of time, and some imports as well. 77.7 is where JSPL is trading at this point. We started by asking Mr. Uppal what was the reason for the very strong growth in EBITDA. Just asked him to sort of break it down for us. Listen in.
We have had a decent EBITDA. It's better than what we had the last quarter. Last quarter we had 19% and now we have about 23%. The EBITDA is a result of several factors. One is that we had changed the product mix. We went for larger production of the structures, medium and heavy structures, and we also had our pellet plants coming on stream. So they also give us a higher output. So it's a product mix plus a certain business unit which are not functioning earlier. They came into action and they contributed better margins.
Is an EBITDA of over 1,000 crores maintainable?
Well, listen, that it will remain our effort to sort of have EBITDA at this level or better. But of course, everything, is not within our control. It depends also on external factors. But we will continue to, look at various factors that can help us to sustain at this level or better. We have always been assuring our, investors that we will make sure that the EBITDA level is, adequately covers our debt interest service levels. So they shouldn't have any anxiety, and we are also making effort to see that how we can just put a cap on the debt amount and also try to make efforts to reduce the debt level.
This is the first quarter in which you did not have access to the mines. So post the deallocation, this was the first quarter. Can you tell us in terms of sourcing, how did you manage? I mean, had you built up inventory? Was there imports? I mean, how did the sourcing work out?
Well, you're absolutely right in saying this is the first quarter post, the deallocation full impact. And, fortunately, there are certain things which also, came out better than we anticipated. For example, the iron ore prices, they started going down. They were all-time high in the month of January, but fortunately that they moved in the right direction. So that helped us to cut down our input material cost. Secondly, the availability of coal got better, with the Coal India producing 12%, recording 12% growth rate compared to same quarter last year. Saw to it that there's more coal which is made available, and more coal came for auction. You could also claim the coal that we were to get under our linkage. So all total, the fuel availability was somewhat better than we had anticipated, and that sort of a trend seems to continue. That's what we have witnessed even in the month of July. So the material situation, raw material situation, was constantly improving, and I hope that the trend will continue.
In the power business, do you think utilization will get better, Mr. Uppal?
Certainly so. That in the first quarter that we were affected due to shortage of coal, and the coal was very expensive when it came to buying the coal from the open auctions. But now with the increased production of coal, the rates have started to soften and the quantity has become more abundant than we saw earlier. So I think going forward with the increased availability of coal, and secondly more evacuation of power from the generating stations at Chhattisgarh should help us to produce more power and export more power. So both steel and power, with the availability of material and adequate quantity, I think should have positive impact on our performance going forward.
Ma'am, sir, steel business volumes were strong. Could you put that into context for us? Because what we are hearing otherwise is that steel demand isn't great at all. I mean, it's actually quite low, depressed.
Well, our total steel production went up by 38% and the sales also went up by the same magnitude. In the domestic market, with the local units, the steel production and the offtake was better by about 11%, and the rest of the contribution came from our plant in Oman, which had gone into stream last year, and now the plant has stabilized. So both of them put taken together on a consolidated level basis, our total production and sales were up by 38%.
Can you tell us, Mr. Uppal, what is the outlook for the steel business? Demand essentially, as you see it.
Well, as far as steel is concerned, that the total demand went up by just about 0.5% compared to the same quarter last year. But whatever improvement was happening in the steel market, the benefit was not coming to the local producers. They not only took away the incremental demand, but they also took away demand from the old base. And the Chinese import, for example, in the first 4 months of this year are more than 3 million tons, and it seems to find no end. The imports continue unabated. Then the countries which have signed FTA with India, like Korea and China and Japan, they also have exported a lot to India. So the question is that even if the demand goes up in the coming quarters, like Q3, Q4, which I definitely see happening, who is going to reap the benefit of increased demand? Is it the local industry or is the exporters to India? I think that is where that we here in India have to take a decision. The government has to take a decision. Now today they increase the duty by another 2.5%, which I think is definitely a step in the right direction. I think the industrial industry very much appreciates the initiative taken by Government of India. But this is not adequate, because the amount of benefits the Chinese producers enjoy over Indians are substantially higher. I mean, they get incentives between 13 to 15% on any alloy grade steel they produce, and they call every steel they export outside alloy grade. Even if they have to add just a dash of manganese or chrome to it, they start calling it alloy steel. So I think and then they have huge advantage in terms of the interest rates, the internal logistic cost, plus a logistic cost up to the customer country. For example, if they export a ton of steel from Shanghai to Bombay, it costs them $12 per ton, whereas if we have to send them from Odisha to Bombay, it costs us $55 by rail. So where is the sense of fair comparison? So we are so handicapped on many accounts, that if you look at the conversion cost of Indian producers, is very comparable to any other producer in the world. But where we get a disadvantage is on the factors external to the unit. Like I said, logistic costs, the interest costs, cost of electricity, all these things put us to disadvantage. So it is not that we are fighting shy of competition, it's just that we want a level playing field. Now India has the ambition to become a world's second largest producer of steel. Right now we are in slot number 3, but the gap between us and Japanese, who are sitting on rank number 2, is not much. I'm certain with the kind of expansion plans which are going on, that India will certainly end up as the second largest producer. But the second largest producer has to also defend itself against the supplies made by China, which is accounting for more than 50% of the world demand, manufacturing capacity, which is at 1.15 billion tons, and they're already producing 860 billion tons. So Indian producer, even though may rank number 2, they're still like a minnow in front of the Chinese steel industry. And no country has built up itself by importing steel. You take the example of China themselves, United States, Europe and Japan, Korea, everybody produces its own quantity of steel. And for that to happen, it is very important that we do proper protection and ring fencing of the Indian industry while it's in its growth stage.
Can the government, how much can the government do, Mr. Uppal? In sort of
well, I think the government is the right course. I think they've shown their willingness to bring parity between the imports and the local producers. We very much appreciate, as I said earlier, but I think what we have today is not adequate. That is not going to make any difference. You can see that Chinese devalued their currency by 3.5% in the last 2 days. So any saving that you did, for the saving and local industry against import is already neutralized. So that I think we need to look at, the the possibility of introducing some kind of safeguard duty like we did in the case of stainless steel. I think it's required. When we expect the Indian steel industry to hike up its capacity from 150 to 300, that's going to happen only when the Indian steel industry is healthy. It has its own, the share of earnings from its operation, which they can flow back into new investments. But if the industry is in a state of sickness, you cannot expect them to make any more investments. So I think, we need to take our own decisions.
Mr. Uppal, why is private capex, according to you, still lagging behind so much? Is it purely a demand issue?
That the new government got sworn in just about 1.5 years ago, and there were a lot of policy amendments which were required, and also we had to create a new legal framework. There were a lot of issues around the policy measures. I think the last over a year or so, government has taken multiple initiatives to bring amendments in the policy, whereby the investors feel more assured and more secure, and they're more assured of the continuity of policies. I think this government has been trying to basically bring about that. But some of the amendments which have to take place have to have the endorsement of the parliament. I think, the issue need to move faster in the parliament. We take about the GST issue, you take about a land bill, and a whole lot of other issues. I think once the legislative endorsement is there, I think that action can be taken. I think this is one issue which should be part of national agenda, and all parties, regardless of their affiliation, I think should support items of the national agenda.
Mr. Uppal, thanks very much for your time. Good speaking with you, sir. Let's just take a look at the market, the Nifty, very quickly, and then let's take a quick break. We're